Let's pick up the conversation right here, Mike, with this Notre Dame football class. Marcus Freeman and the staff on the job for a year. Of course, some of these guys were recruited by Notre Dame well over the year we're talking about. But for Freeman and his staff, Mike, you're on the beat day in and day out following these coaches trying to secure this class. Your general thoughts on the job of Marcus and his assistant coaching staff the past 365 days?
Yeah, yeah. Quite the loaded question, Darren. There's so many different ways that, I could go with this, but let's just kind of take a big picture look at this. I would give Marcus Freeman credit for signing the 2022 class. Brian Kelly left, but that was Freeman and Reese. Like they did a lot of the heavy lifting for that class. So when you look at last class and this one, Notre Dame's first time signing back-to-back top 10 classes since 2013, 2014. That says a lot. I think with the way that the class finished, Notre Dame missing out on some guys and, a couple decommitments, I think the feeling has been for a lot of Notre Dame Nation that I've seen on social media and on our blue and gold message board has been, more of the same. This is exactly what happened under Kelly. Yeah, except for Notre Dame did not sign back-to-back top 10 classes since 2013, 14 with Brian Kelly at the helm. So I think it's a continued upward trajectory with Marcus Freeman. I think his recruiting skills and work ethic are outstanding. Look, I mean, you can be such a great coach, but if you don't have the guys on the field, it's going to be hard for you to win a national championship. So Notre Dame is going to continue to recruit at the highest level possible. And then, of course, I hope to have the best coaches to, get those guys up to their potential. But recruiting has continued to be the number one priority for Notre Dame under Marcus Freeman. And I think they've done another, bang up job on the recruiting trail.
Think back to a year ago, National Signing Day for the 22 class. Think about, was there a position group where you said Notre Dame's got to hit a home run in the 23 cycle at this position in order for this class to have a chance to have success, of course, win ball games in the future? What position was it, and did the Irish hit that home run?
Great question, Darren. I would say there's two positions, and that I think you have to mention both of them. You can't just go with one. It's quarterback and receiver. And I'll start with receiver. When you sign Braylon James, who is the number 121 overall player, number 20 wide receiver nationally. Jaden Greathouse, number 158 overall player nationally, number 24 wide receiver, both young men from the Austin, Texas area. Rico Flores Jr., number 219 overall player and number 30 wide receiver. And then Notre Dame also signed Caleb Smith, a 3-star receiver from the Dallas area. Darren, that is Notre Dame's first time ever, at least in the internet era, when you have all these rankings websites, of Notre Dame signing 3 top 30 wide receivers nationally. So I would say, just again, the proof will be in the pudding. We'll see how this ends up. That's not to say, these rankings mean, that these guys are going to pan out, but we're just looking on paper. This is Notre Dame's, deepest receivers class they've signed ever. So for a guy like Chancey Stuckey coming in, and there's a lot of question marks about, is this the right guy? A couple years ago, he had never been a receivers coach. Should Notre Dame go get someone more experienced? I think that, look, Darren, when we criticize this season this year for Notre Dame on the football field, we're not talking about the receiver. We're not really diving into the receiver position like we had in years past. That room is on an upward trajectory, as well as the recruiting. I mean, this was a darn good class for Notre Dame on the receiver front. And then, quarterback, and not a 5-star guy. But I mean, Kenny Minchie, people are very excited about this young man in South Bend. No, they didn't get Dante Moore or Jackson Arnold or The young man headed to Tennessee, who's, all those 5-star guys, or Arch Manning, but, Kenny Minchie, flipping him from Pittsburgh, in the talent that this young man has. I think Notre Dame, I don't know, maybe they didn't hit a home run, but a solid triple. I think they hit a triple here. So job well done, for Notre Dame landing Kenny Minchie and then at the receiver position. And I know, we'll talk about Sam Hartman later, but, if Notre Dame also lands him, now you're looking at, like a 5-star caliber transfer. So the combination of potentially Minchie and Hartman being added to the quarterback room, now that's an A+.
No question about that, which leads me to a question. Some writers I've noticed are saying we need to take a signing class and then add in who you get out of the transfer portal and make that almost, hey, this is the class that this program is bringing in. So, for example, not to confuse people, but there's another Caleb Smith now that's a wide receiver that's a transfer from Virginia Tech. And, of course, there's speculation Sam Hartman from Wake Forest, the quarterback, might join the Irish. Is that a good way of looking at it? I know in the whole scheme of things it doesn't matter, but when you analyze the roster, can you see combining those two things in order for people to understand what the coaching staff has done with this particular offseason?
I get this question a lot. It's like, oh, do transfers count towards recruiting rankings? It's totally different because you're asking a transfer to do something totally different than a high school recruit. Like high school recruit is, sometimes those guys can come in day one and make an impact, but it's a little bit more of, what's down the line. Whereas a grad transfer like Caleb Smith, who I'm glad you mentioned, because I think folks should be really excited about. I think like signing day, so much of the focus is on Peyton Bowen and, what didn't end up happening for Notre Dame. But Caleb Smith committed and signed with the Irish on national signing day. This was a really solid get to bolster the wide receiver room. But it's kind of tough to, add in transfers to your recruit. I'm sure it'll be done, and all these websites are, adding new stuff. But I think when you do add in, you land Caleb Smith, I think that bolsters what Notre Dame has done on the recruiting trail. Spencer Schrader from USF. It's like, oh, it's a kicker. Woo-hoo. Well, if this young man wins Notre Dame a football game, then it was worth it, right? And then potentially Sam Hartman. They were after Braden Fiskey, an interior defensive lineman from Western Michigan. He opted to go to Florida State, but I do still anticipate Notre Dame keeping an eye out there for just best available talent. Like going into the offseason, Darren, I don't think any of us were talking about Notre Dame needs desperately to land an interior defensive lineman. Is more of a Viper, quarterback, receiver. But I think with them going after Fiskey, it kind of told us that, hey, they're going to go after the best available talent. So if that's a defensive lineman, great. If that's a linebacker, great. And we'll still see, Darren, like who leaves after the bowl game. Like, does Brandon Joseph declare, or does he want to find a new home? And then that could make Notre Dame want to look more closely at the safety position, transfer portal. So most of Notre Dame's work, in recruiting, whether that be high school or transfer portal, is mostly done. But you still have, hey, close on Hartman, see about other transfer portal additions, and don't forget preferred walk-ons. Notre Dame has 5 that we know about, but I still think they'll get some more guys, in that route. So still more work to be done for this coaching staff for sure.